Hi, this is Pam with ROC Metaphysical. We're interviewing, and you can tell by my background, well, my hand's going the wrong way. We're leading into December, and so I thought this was a great opportunity to have my contributing writers who are astrologers, and they're a team that work together, so they have great energy and a great dynamic to work for themselves and for others. So a bit about the magazine. It's an online magazine called ROC, R-O-C Metaphysical. It's an online magazine. There's no paper, so no killing trees. You can go on the magazine anytime. It's free for anyone. And you can find it. It's rocmetaphysical.com. New articles come out the first of each month. And then there's an ongoing calendar and advertising, and that may be updated frequently based on what's going on. So today we've got Ancestral Cycles here with us. So I'm going to ask you two to introduce yourselves and kind of give us a background of what you two do in your business.
Thanks, Pam.
Thank you, Pam.
I'm Aeolea Wendy Burwell, and this is my partner.
Peter Dowdy.
And together we are A to Z Astrology. And we have an opportunity through Zoom now, primarily, no more in-person consults for the time being. But in addition to our writing for ROC Metaphysical, our column is called, as Pam said, Ancestral Cycles. We are consulting astrologers. And what that means is you get a very personal recorded consultation where we not only tell you stuff, but we listen to you so we know what part of your chart you'd like to focus on. And that's important because there's a lot of information in a person's birth chart.
Yeah, we emphasize our sessions as a conversation with our clients. And we ask for some at least a couple of questions for us to mull over as we study the chart before meeting with our clients. So that's our starting point, and we encourage our clients during the sessions to ask questions as they come up.
And the folks we work with really provide the day and the date of their birth, the place of their birth, and whenever possible, the hour of their birth.
Right.
And that's often recorded on the long form of the birth certificate. Some people have a birth certificate and they say, oh, it's not on there, but then they contact the hospital and they get the long form and there it is. So it's also a specialty in astrology to rectify a chart and figure out a person's birth time. That isn't one of the services that we're offering at this time. There are some experts in the field, but we can still learn a lot if someone says, oh, I was adopted and no one knows what time, or something along those lines. We can still learn a lot about the energy patterns that one's soul has chosen to incarnate and work on. And really that's what the birth chart is, this snapshot of the heavens at I call it our personal mandala, you know, of the moment of our birth and reflecting the soul's evolution and what we've chosen to work on.
Yeah, and as the sun, moon, and planets continue to move around in their various cycles, they'll make connections with the planets in the birth chart. So it's a way of timing and understanding the nature of various periods of time and their characteristics.
Well, I'd just like to interject. I think that's a good point. You know, I didn't even think about it. It's about my soul when it comes through. If we, you know, have that awareness, if you've done a lot of reading and, you know, understand, you know, we have our soul. And so, according to what I've read, that our soul comes in at the moment of birth, which, so, I mean, that's a really great reminder that it's just not about my physical being, but it's also about my soul, which is really a great point. And I think it's so important, just like anything, you know, when you're having a conversation and you want information, it's great to have that back and forth conversation, because you may present something, but you want to go a little deeper, like, you know, if it's about employment and, you know, your work, you know, where is that going? And maybe knowing more about your characteristics will help you, you know, on your current work, or maybe looking for new work as everything is changing these days.
Yeah, astrology can be a really powerful tool for strategizing in business. So one of our services, beyond just promoting psychological understanding and spiritual growth,
Yeah.
but dealing with the here and now of making our way in the world.
Okay, so you guys, I'm sorry, I'm just, if you have something to say.
There's one quick point about the here and now that I want to
Yeah,
make.
sure, go ahead.
Some people are, I've had individuals say to me, oh, I don't want to know what's going to happen. And that comes from a very fatalistic viewpoint. Ancient astrologers were more emphasizing the fatal, how one's life is fated. And modern astrologers are really looking at the intersection between fate and free will. So when we look at the cycles and we look at the energy patterns, then our choices broaden and change, and that's where the free will part comes in.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to make that point in case any of our listeners are thinking, well, I don't want to know what's going to happen. It's not really like that.
I mean, the birth chart can indicate, in a sense, what a person has gotten as a hand of cards to play, but there's a lot to be gained from playing that hand skillfully.
How one plays it is the free will part, you know.
Right.
It's and it's a distinction I thought was important to make. So thanks, Pam.
Right. Well, I was just going to say, I mean, you're given more tools, or you're giving some inside information. So if you said, you know, employment looks good for January and February, and if I, you know, was searching for a job, you know, I'd go, you know, maybe there's better energy for me to be searching, and maybe that perfect job will appear at that time, because now I have a little insight into more a positive outlook, I guess, is what I'm looking for.
That's certainly a great way to look at it. And in terms of cycles, if it's okay, I'd like to talk a little bit about why we are calling our regular column Ancestral Cycles, because from recorded time and beyond, our ancestors have been observing the night sky, and we are able to do that as well, both visually as well as with an understanding of what it might represent. Now this summer, visually, for example, we've been just blessed with a particular show.
It's been quite an amazing show for us astrologers to see Jupiter and Saturn creeping closer together over the last months. These days, well, when we are able to actually see the sky through without some clouds, we're seeing Jupiter and Saturn quite close together just after sundown in the southwest. We've also been seeing Mars very bright in the night sky, basically all night.
More directly to the east. And
Yeah.
Mars is very easy to spot because
It's
it
red.
does give off a reddish hue. But particularly today, we wanted to speak about Jupiter and Saturn. We're talking about cycles within cycles within cycles. So Jupiter and Saturn come together at the same place in the night sky, in the sky every 20 years. And this year, it will be on the winter solstice, December 21st. So if the sky is clear, don't miss the opportunity to go out and gaze upon Jupiter and Saturn.
Yeah.
You really, if you've got a view of the southwest sky, you won't miss it.
Yeah, they'll look like an unusually fat star. I mean, not quite circular because they're almost one in front of the other.
And of course, there's a lot
Very
of
rare.
distance between them that we can't see, but they
Right.
appear to be in the same place. So this 20-year cycle is also part of a greater 200-year cycle. And that is part of a greater 800-year cycle. So let me back up. The last time Jupiter and Saturn were together in Aquarius, which is where they will be on December 21st, was 800 years ago. And at that time in history, we saw a big shift, and we will all be able to feel this shift, even if we can't name it as Jupiter and Saturn in Aquarius, although if you read the articles, and you will be able to name it, we'll feel it nonetheless. This is a huge shift for humanity. Most of us have heard about the age of Aquarius, and some people will even say, well, we've been singing about it since the 60s. When does it start?
And it doesn't start on any particular one moment, but this conjunction is a crucial moment in this unfolding shift. And we will notice a shift in the tone of our political life and our social life. This conjunction in Aquarius starts, as Aeolea said, a 200-year era when all of the conjunctions
every 20 years
take place in air signs. For the past 200 years, all of the conjunctions have been in earth signs. And if people reflect, they'll realize, oh yeah, this has been the age of industrialization, of taking really everything that we possibly can out of the earth and using it. And we are at a point now that we absolutely have to shift, and we will shift to a way of living lighter on the earth.
That 200 years of being in earth signs, not only was so much of the riches of the earth extracted, but they were extracted for the material gain. And we're evolving to another place as we enter this 200 years of the conjunctions being in air cycles, where we can use our minds and connect. Obviously, Zoom is a great example of that. Technology will be a big part of that. I think in the coming years, we will start to see a huge shift in technological advances on many levels. 800 years ago saw the beginning of banking. Now we're experiencing banking in a more virtual, conceptual, which is air. Some of this has already begun, like we said, it's not just on the day, but we'll see that intensify.
Now we're paying our bills and ordering our stuff through the air.
We'll see.
How amazing.
We'll see technology can spell more jobs, but if you think about a production plant, if manufacturing comes back to this country, as it's starting to because of things like global warming and tariffs, it doesn't necessarily spell jobs on the line. They'll be robotic. This is also Aquarian in nature and air related. They will be robots. So where are the jobs? More in the technical field than in the hands-on, repetitious manufacturing part, actual line work.
Right.
We'll see a shift in the political tone, as we were already starting to see with the incoming administration being much more centered. Aquarius is a sign with a focus on humanitarianism and people as a whole. And that has some pluses and minuses, but in this example, we're seeing a shift away from, I mean, mine, what I can get for my betterment, to how do we help all of those in need? And that's a big reflection of the shift that we're talking about.
Right.
So do you want to talk about your article for December so we can entice folks to read the article and get to know you more and what services you offer?
Very good.
Yeah, well, we're still working on it, but as usual, our article will look at both the personal side of the planetary movements as well as the larger scale social and political. And as usual, we'll be telling people where to actually see the planets that are potentially visible.
Writing on a monthly basis offers some unique opportunities and some challenges. So for the month of December, we start by looking at the moon's cycle, which is one of the easiest to tune into both emotionally and in the sky to even the most casual observer. And then we also talk about specific astrological events happening in the month. For example, on December, we've already mentioned this, the winter solstice and how huge that is. On December 14th, there's going to be an eclipse. And it's also the day that the Electoral College meets. It also is exactly on the moon of our current president.
Who also was born on a lunar eclipse.
So again, the cycles are repeating, and if we have questions about his lunacy already, it's hard to imagine what we'll see December 14th and the weeks thereafter. Lunacy is the best I can, you know, astrology is archetypally predictive. Some very psychic people are very good at saying very specific things that will happen, but we tend to fall into the archetypal school where we can talk about energy and possibilities rather than specific events. So we're not here to say anything specific about the current administration, just that it's, if you're not already watching the days leading up to and the weeks following December 14th will be a very important shift. We speak a lot in our articles about the bigger picture, which is known in astrology as mundane, not boring, but of the earth, you know,
Right.
of the bigger picture. And then we try to also personalize it. For example, this Jupiter-Saturn shift into Aquarius will really affect those who are born in the early part of Aquarius.
Which is January 20th is when it starts.
Starting January 20th. So if you're born in the first week of Aquarius, if you're born in the first week of Leo, the sign opposite Aquarius, or Taurus and Saturn.
Taurus and Scorpio.
Taurus and Scorpio.
Yeah.
You're personally going to feel that shift in your life more dramatically than some others will. So we try to balance the big picture, the mundane, the worldview, with our personal need to know, what does this mean for me? You know,
Right.
not easy to do on the page or on the screen, but we can certainly give some indications. And then if someone wants to know if it resonates with them and they say, oh gosh, I wonder what that really means for me, at the end of every one of our articles is Peter's blog, Zodiacal Spirals, and
Zodiacal Spiral.
one spiral.
Singular.com.
And that's the best way to contact us. Our email address is there as well. And we encourage everyone to get in touch and start the conversation with us.
We love to work with individual people and their own.
Right. And, you know, even though we're in Rochester with the beauty of Zoom and all technology, you know, you're available to work with anybody, anywhere.
Right?
Right.
As long as you have the information and, you know, good point. You told me I should look at my birth certificate to see if the birth time is on there because, you know, my mom is a little older and, you know, the exact time is kind of slipped away a little bit.
Well, families were very busy, especially your mom. She was very busy at the moment of your birth. She was not watching the clock, I don't think.
And actually back then they knocked you out.
Yeah.
You know, you were not aware of what was going on. Which
Yeah.
Yeah, the privacy laws have tightened quite a bit in recent years. So, but a person can go to the Bureau of Vital Statistics, and they'll need to provide some information, some identification rather, probably a driver's license and or a passport to really prove who they are. And then they can get a copy of their own birth certificate.
I had a student a few years back, because I also teach anyone who's interested in learning the foundational principles of astrology, which are more accessible than some people think. And I had a student a few years ago who was more than a little grumpy because on her birth certificate, it did not say what time, but she went to the city and she showed them, and she was, you would have thought it was Christmas, how happy she was when she found out what time she was born, so that we could be even more specific about her chart.
Okay, well, if anything else you want to share with us, and then we'll tie it up.
We see astrology as a tool for better self-understanding, and through this mandala, you know, the picture of the sky at the moment of our birth is our own personal mandala, and we'd love to work with folks in discovering more about who they are and their life purpose.
Yeah.
And it's all mapped out, you might say.
Yeah, well said. Thank you.
Okay, well, I thank you guys. And again, you can find their article at rocmetaphysical.com. And for past articles, I guess I should say this too. I archive the older issues on a site called issuu.com. So if you read December and you're like, oh, wait a minute, I want to go back and check something, you can read prior issues on issuu.com. So if they have a specific information that they want to get from your article, it'll be on there. So
Perfect.
I want to say thank you. And, you know, it was great spending this time. I learned, you know, I'm always learning something new. So I'm going to say thanks, and I'm going to hit the stop button.